Our hearts are heavy today as we share tragic news from Burkina Faso. The town of Barcelogo has been struck by a brutal terrorist attack, and we ask for your thoughts and prayers during this time of grief and sorrow. The peaceful lives of innocent civilians were shattered in a violent assault that claimed the lives of hundreds. It is difficult to imagine the pain and suffering endured by the families affected, and the entire nation is mourning the loss of so many. On the 24th of August, a group of armed terrorists, members of the extremist group Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, JNIM, affiliated with Al-Qaeda, stormed the town of Barcelogo. Their target, both civilians and volunteer soldiers who were courageously digging trenches to protect their homes and loved ones from the looming threat of violence. Tragically, the trenches became the very place where these innocent men and women lost their lives. The attack was brutal and swift. Videos shared on social media, filmed by the attackers themselves, showed the horrifying scene. Men dressed in civilian clothing being indiscriminately shot down as cries of Allahu Akbar echoed through the air. In those moments, hundreds of lives were extinguished, leaving behind a community in deep despair. Some reports suggest that the death toll could reach as high as 500 people, making this one of the deadliest attacks in Burkina Faso this year. The security forces, already stretched thin, were unable to prevent this massacre, despite the best efforts of local volunteers. These brave individuals stood side by side with soldiers, determined to protect their town. Sadly, their sacrifice was met with unimaginable cruelty. The failure to safeguard Barcelogo has led to widespread criticism of the military and the government. Families of the victims are left asking how such a catastrophe could happen and why their loved ones were left vulnerable to such a horrific assault. Mahamadou Sana, Burkina Faso's security minister, addressed the nation in the aftermath, vowing that the perpetrators of this atrocity would face justice. We will make sure that the enemy knows that we will never again accept such barbarity in our territory. In any case, we want to assure the Burkinabe people that we are committed to protecting the Burkinabe and their property and will stand firm, he declared in a state television broadcast. Yet, for many, these words are cold comfort. The grief runs deep, and the fear of future attacks looms large. The United Nations also condemned the attack. Ben Saul, the Special Rapporteur on Counter-Terrorism and Human Rights, extended his deepest sympathies to the victims, their families, and the people of Burkina Faso. He emphasized that terrorist violence not only destroys lives, but also tears at the very fabric of human rights and the rule of law. He stated, "Terrorist violence against civilians destroys human rights, including the rights to life and personal security. Terrorism undermines democracy, socio-economic development, and everything we hold dear as a global community." This tragedy is not an isolated incident. Burkina Faso has been facing an escalating wave of violence in recent years. Extremist groups like JNIM have terrorized the northern and eastern regions of the country, forcing millions of people to flee their homes. The violence has destabilized entire communities, leaving behind a trail of destruction, trauma, and loss. Entire families are left without homes, food, or security, and the once thriving communities now live in fear, wondering when the next attack will strike. As we mourn the lives lost, it is essential to remember that this is not just a Burkinabe tragedy, it is a human tragedy. Every life lost is a reminder that terrorism knows no borders, no boundaries, and no limits to its cruelty. It is an evil that affects us all, and we must stand in solidarity with the people of Burkina Faso as they navigate this unimaginable pain. International organizations like Open Doors have called on governments to take stronger action to protect civilians. Joe Newhouse, the spokesperson for Open Doors' work in sub-Saharan Africa, spoke passionately about the need for immediate intervention. The millions of Burkinabe people that have already been affected by the violence are living in constant flux, bereaved, and severely traumatized. The immediate and long-term human cost of the violence must not be allowed to continue in this manner. All human beings have the right to protection, no matter their faith, ethnicity, or gender, she said. Her words echo the sentiments of so many across the world who are watching in horror as these senseless acts of violence continue to claim innocent lives. The world must not turn a blind eye to the suffering of the Burkinabe people. Now more than ever, they need our prayers, support, and advocacy. It is our duty as global citizens to ensure that these tragedies are not forgotten. While we may feel powerless in the face of such evil, we must continue to raise our voices, calling for justice, accountability, and protection for those who are most vulnerable. Terrorism cannot be allowed to destroy the hopes and dreams of entire nations. In the wake of this attack, we call on everyone, no matter where you are in the world, to take a moment to pray for the people of Burkina Faso. Pray for the families who have lost loved ones, for the survivors who must now navigate life in the shadow of this violence, and for the government leaders tasked with bringing peace to their country. The road ahead will not be easy. The wounds inflicted by this attack will take years, if not decades, to heal. But we must remain steadfast in our support, standing with the people of Burkina Faso in their time of need. Please, if you feel moved by this tragedy, consider helping in any way you can. Spread awareness of the situation, donate to humanitarian organizations working on the ground, or simply keep the people of Basalogo in your thoughts and prayers. Let us come together as one global community, united in our desire for peace and justice. The people of Burkina Faso deserve nothing less.